Go live there. Go live there. Oh, everyone is bothering us. Shift into growing out of my head. Yes, that's fine. Call your friends. You are about to start. Tell me which university you come from. Today, I'm a bit late. Struggling with devices. They are acting up on me. But we are all set. We've got 3 of them here in front of me. Welcome. Tell me which university you come from so that I can welcome you properly. People on Facebook, call your friends. Let them know we are here. Twitter, come on. UP in the house. Welcome, Lebo. Welcome. UCT in the house. Masia, welcome. West Vets. Where are you guys? UKZN, welcome. UNISA, welcome. UNISA in the house. You've got a new VC. How lucky are you guys at UNISA? Professor Puleng Lenkabula is fantastic. University of Limpopo in the house. Welcome. UCT in the house. Welcome. GSB. Welcome. In the house. Pru, I can see you from Vets. Welcome. CPUT. UCT. University of Nairobi. Welcome. TSB, I can see you. UFS, I can see you. Vets, taking a break from exams tomorrow. Welcome. I can see all of you. Someone says, who's cancelled? Ntando Sindani is not cancelled this year. We're going to talk to Ntando later. UJ, welcome. I can see you. I'm waiting for the room to go full. I can see Twitter is filling up. Facebook, please tell your friends, send them a WhatsApp. It's lit today. We're talking about academic freedom. University of Northwest University. My undergraduate university, welcome. SBL, UNISA School of Business Leadership, welcome. Good to see you. It's the first time we're seeing the SBL here, but it's good to see you guys. UCT, GSB, Vets, it's lit. Yes. Vets in the house. Where's UWC? DUT in the house. We want Stellis and UWC, and then we will start. Stellis and UWC. Welcome. Come on, you guys. Jimmy Ramokopa, good to see you, Jimmy. It's going to be lit today. I should get you online. Jimmy, get ready. If Ntando doesn't come online, because Ntando is in a rural area, ask him to come online so that we can talk with Professor Jimmy Adesina. If he doesn't, Jimmy, you press on to get online with me to ask questions to Professor Adesina. I can see UWC, UKZN, welcome. Welcome. We have a wonderful session going on today. Let's see. CUT in the house. CUT, you all welcome. Let's see who else is there. Facebook, I can see Faith. I can see you there. Faith, Dr. Faith Mashele, I can see you there. My sisters on the line, man. Always support. Boy, I can see you. Msa in the house. Kabazela Kamavo. All right. Let's see who else is in the house. I must close the doors, Young man is not here today. So my doors are all open here. Welcome, guys. We're going to start just now. We are going to be interviewing today. We're talking to Professor Jimmy Adesina. And we are talking about academic freedom. I'm just waiting for one of the rooms to have full house, and then we are starting, right? Just one of the rooms. Let's do it, Instagram. Let's do it. Let's do this thing. We are on 95. When we get to 100 on Instagram, we're starting. Welcome. I miss you too, boy. You have no idea. Mimster is here with me. He's just closed the door. Thank you very much, Mimster. We miss you here, boy. Come back home. All right. Let's see how Insta is going. We need 6 more people, and then we are starting. Otherwise, there will be an echo. Guys. We can't just start with an empty room. There will be an echo. Thanks, Jimmy. I saw you online. I will get to you. We're just going to introduce. We're just waiting for 5 people to join us, and we will start. You are in for the roll call. UWC in the house. Welcome. We just missing 2 people. UWC is in the house. Where's Stellenbosch? Come on. All right, we've got 100 people on Insta, so we can start. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we are talking about academic freedom. There's been lots of debates, not only in South Africa, but elsewhere in the world about academic freedom. And academic freedom is precious to us at universities. To us academics, we fight for academic freedom. But the controversies around academic freedom are growing across the world because questions are being asked. What is academic freedom? Is it absolute freedom? Does it mean you can say anything? What does it mean to be free? What about ethics? Where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line with academic freedom? Can I just say anything? If as long as I'm an academic, I can write anything. It doesn't matter how offensive it is. And of course, the other side of the coin is, do universities, Religious Business School, welcome, good to see you. Does it mean that if there are lines to be drawn, does it mean university management must have rules about what you can say, what you cannot say? How do we know as academics where the line stops, where you cannot cross the line? And I thought I should invite Professor Jimmy Adesina today to talk to us about academic freedom. He's been writing this year about academic freedom as the debates rage. I mean, I've been watching a debate at the University of Ottawa, and you know, there's been a debate here at UCT. All these debates unfold in the newspapers. They are not new. They've been around. We've seen them unfold in other universities. There was a paper that was retracted from a journal, Taylor and Francis Journal at Stellenbosch University last year. There was people have lost jobs because either they went too far or whatever. So I thought we should talk to Professor Jimmy Adesina because I know in this series we are talking about becoming a professor, and these issues are issues that professors grapple with. And of course, anyone who's an academic will grapple with. So what we're going to do today, we're going to invite Professor Jimmy Adesina. She'll talk to us about what is academic freedom. He'll explain to us what are the differences, where does, ethics, are there rules, is there a constitution, do they differ per country, or is the freedom the same across different countries? And then when we have engaged that, we're going to go to questions that people have asked. There's two people who've asked questions, Jimmy and Prudence. I don't know if this is Jimmy Ramokgopa, but we've got one question from Jimmy, another question from Prudence. We're going to take those questions. And then, after Professor Jimmy Adesina has answered those questions, I'm going to try to connect with some of the young people who are very thoughtful. If you want to get online, you've got questions to ask, just let me know. But we're going to get people online on Twitter or on Facebook so that they can ask questions to Professor Jimmy Adesina and he can ask them. I'm hoping that Jimmy Ramokgopa will be available on Twitter and I can just pounce on him and he can come online and have a conversation with Jimmy, Professor Jimmy Adesina, or Ntando Sindani from UNISA. I hope that you'll be available also. But let's get on with it. Let me call Professor Jimmy Adesina on Instagram and we can talk about academic freedom. Jimmy, I hope you can see me. And we're going to have a fantastic conversation. Welcome, Jimmy. So good to have you on the line with me. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me.
Thank you very much. It's a delight to be on your platform. I mean, this is wonderful. I was just hearing of it for the first time. I think it's a remarkable way of reaching an alternative platform outside of normal university environment.
Yes.
To reach a very large audience, especially young
people. Yeah. Jimmy, you're gonna have to speak louder because
okay.
I've got another device here that's on Twitter and Facebook. I've taken the volume the highest so that we can hear you. But I'm just going to ask you to speak louder. We're gonna take some energy so that they don't run away from us. But I agree with you. Social media is an amazing platform that we should be using to reach out to our young people, to share our skills, to share our knowledge. I mean, here's the thing. You are a professor at UNISA, and there are many students across the country who would never have access to you simply because they are not UNISA students. Of course, those who've been students at Rhodes, have experienced you, and some of them have been writing here that they've been taught by you, but others would not have met you. So this platform provides an opportunity not only for me to share what my experiences are, but to bring people like you to share your knowledge.
Thank you very much.
And today we're talking academic freedom, Jimmy. It's an important subject to talk about. And you say in your article, it is sacrosanct. What do you mean? What is academic freedom and why is it sacrosanct?
Well, I mean, I think if you imagine different professions and different vocations, there are underlying principles and requirements for them to function. For the and it's not just university now. Research, what do you call it? Communities, intellectuals who function in the media, and so on and so forth. A guarantee of the freedom to research, to analyze your data without fear, to disseminate your data, your results without let or hindrance, and to interact with others is fundamental to the scholarly vocation. And the reason is this: if you imagine, I mean, in the South African context, enormous amount of public resources go into supporting academia. Why? Go into supporting research institutions. Why? Go into supporting what do you call it? Research councils. Why? Because the work they do is vital for the progress of society. Innovation in research. You know, what do you call it? Exploring new areas. There are things they call frontiers, blue sky, and so on and so forth. Because we really have no idea at the beginning of a research what the outcome will be. If you take, as a very simple example, what we are doing now, the technology in the 1950s, this will look like voodoo. But this is a result of public investment in research, in astronomy, in what we call it, satellite technology, you know, that has now made it possible for me to be in Tshwane and you to be in Cape Town, and we have a whole plethora of people joining us from all over the place, being able to communicate. This is the result of research. Not at the time that they were doing this research, they did not anticipate that it will end up in smartphones, social media, and so on and so forth. But that's the result. If you take the example of what do you call it, research into you know, malaria, cancer, what do you call it, Alzheimer, and you know, research into what do you call it, design of houses in a way in which it provides, you know, quality of life for people. These are things that the public, through the state institutions, finance.
Okay, I want us to focus a little bit, Professor. Now, I have a young student who says, "Tell me briefly, how does academic freedom differ from freedom of speech?" Like, they say, there's all this research, the government funds it, we understand. And what you're saying is that academics want the freedom to ask the questions that are of interest to them, to pursue their research, and then the findings, to communicate the findings of their research without fear or favor. Fear or favor, whether they please government or business or management, they should not fear. They should be able to communicate the results of their research, right?
Okay, but this is where we'll come to the to the responsibility aspect, the ethics aspect,
Yeah.
because it's part of the bundle of the rights themselves. But if I can answer directly, I mean, if you take the South African Constitution,
Yes.
under the Bill of Rights, Section 16 of the Bill of Rights deals with freedom of expression.
Yes.
A subset of that, in paragraph D, is academic freedom and freedom of scientific research. So
Yes.
the academic freedom is the subset of freedom of expression. But it is specifically reserved for inquiry, dissemination of findings, and the community of intellectuals being able to operate without fear, let, or hindrance. So and this is where, you know, we will talk about the traditional understanding of academic freedom and what they call the contemporary understanding of academic freedom.
Yeah.
Okay. Because in the traditional understanding of academic freedom, you know, German universities, American universities in the early 20th century and this and that, academic freedom is understood strictly in terms of what you do within the confines of the university, in the interaction between professors and so on and so forth. Anything you do outside of the walls of the university in the traditional understanding is not covered. Okay? The contemporary understanding, and this is where the Kampala Declaration of 1990, which was the African intellectuals coming together at a conference in Kampala and agreeing on this declaration, you know, with the contemporary understanding, covers association among academics, the fact that we should be able to associate, exchange opinion, exchange ideas, exchange the result of our findings without fear. And this is the other part, fundamental part of it, the social responsibility of intellectuals to act in the highest standard of ethics within their discipline. In other words,
tell me about this Kampala. You call it the Kampala
declaration.
Declaration. I mean,
Yes.
when it happened, there had already been another declaration that had happened before. This wasn't the first declaration. Yeah.
Well, it was, there was the Lima Declaration in 1988, which was the World
University Service in 1988.
Okay, in 1988, which was the convention of the World University Service, which is based in Geneva, in Lima. Okay, the interesting thing about that was concerned with academic freedom and institutional autonomy, something we'll talk about in a minute. But it mentioned something about the responsibility of intellectuals, but the first effort to flesh that out as a substantive underpinning of academic freedom was at the Kampala conference organized by CODESME. And this was African intellectuals responding to the context in the continent where academics were restricted from traveling, where people were arrested for expressing opinions, where in fact in the case of Algeria, you know, assassination of scholars because the FIS, you know, jihadist group, consider them not sufficiently as too secular. Okay, in fact, one of my friends had to flee Algeria. He passed away earlier this week. You know, and it was in the context, in that particular context of restriction of academic freedom and so on and so forth. But at that particular conference, the idea was that the academic freedom has to be underpinned by ethical conduct by scholars, which is where the social responsibility of intellectuals came in. Okay, and that was actually then taken up at the UNESCO Assembly in 1997, which then
Yes.
became almost like a kind of global declaration. In the same way, in
So,
South African context,
mm,
if you look at the South African context, there's the freedom of expression,
yeah,
but your freedom of expression is constrained by, you can't say things that lead to, what do you call it, incitement to violence, incitement to war, demolition of the dignity of others, and so on and so forth.
yeah,
In this particular context, academics, in the pursuit of academic freedom, must act within the confines of the highest standard of ethics.
okay, yeah, yeah.
So, if, so, so it,
But you said academic freedom is a subset of freedom of speech, and then there's the
yes,
issue of ethics. So
yes.
someone is asking about the issue of political correctness.
It depends on the context in which you are what you're dealing with, because political correctness is used so widely
Yeah.
these days. It's actually used by people who the word political correctness is used by people who are opposed to it. Now,
Aha.
if I'm and remember, academic freedom is a protection for inquiry, analysis, and dissemination of data.
Yeah.
I get invited often by radio and something to comment on something. I say, well, it's not an area in which I've done any research. I have no competence, to provide the information. If I say I'm a professor in the university and I go out on the street and I start insulting the president or start, saying scurrilous things about you. Collect the data, analyze it, and then say this reveals I'm protected by academic freedom. But I can't then go ahead and say that I'm presenting data, draw conclusions that have make conclusion statements about conclusions that have nothing to do with my research. I'm not protected. That has nothing to do with my data, where my data may in fact be saying the exact opposite about what I'm claiming. Now, that could be driven by my prejudice. I'm not protected by academic freedom.
Yeah.
This is where the ethical issue comes in.
Aha. Aha. So you can't use it to cover unethical behavior or even bad science. You cannot use the argument of academic freedom to cover unethical behavior or bad science. Yeah. And if you do that, I mean, I saw in one of your articles, and you said if people do that, then I mean, you are saying now, if it's an insult against someone, they would have an obligation to take you on in terms of you protecting their reputation. But in terms of institution, then what does it mean? And I guess this is where we can talk about. So, what about institutional, the responsibility of the institution?
Well, okay, there are two
We're
parts
losing
to
Professor
this.
Adesina. Is the network? Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
am I okay now?
I'm losing you, Jimmy. We're losing you.
Am I okay now?
Your network is dodgy. Your network is a little dodgy. It keeps escaping.
This is Vodacom now, because I'm not using the Wi-Fi. I'm using data bundle. Yeah.
It was behaving. It was behaving. I'm thinking that this is sabotage, Jimmy. This is sabotage.
No.
Getting into.
No, I won't say so. But let's
Okay.
if I still have what do you call it? This
Yes.
is where the question of what do you call it, institutional autonomy comes in. The
Yes.
idea of a community of intellectuals, a community of
Yes.
scholars, and when I say intellectuals here, I don't mean just the professors. It includes students.
Yes.
It includes everybody within the university to be self-governing.
Yeah.
You don't send a businessman who runs what do you call it, a mine in Western to go and run SANDF.
Yes.
Okay, you don't do that. So the protection of the community to be self-governing, but inside that is also that the community has to be self-governing in a transparent, accountable, and democratic
Yes.
manner.
You are breaking. You are breaking, Jimmy.
I'm back now.
We lost what you said about the Kampala. That's what the Kampala Declaration was about. And I can see you are back now. You are back now. Let's go over that again, Jimmy.
Now, the idea is that as a community of scholars, as a self-governing,
Yeah.
what do you call it, community, you know, because of its unique nature, okay, as a self-governing something, you know, has to be governed in a way that is transparent, that is accountable, and that is democratic. Within that particular framework, the community itself set up the regulatory mechanism for the conduct of its members. In other words, if I were to be, you know, what do you call it? If I were to, what do you call it, behave in an unethical manner, okay, I can't walk up to my university and say academic freedom. They say no, hold on. There are rules here. There are regulations in place that says you may not do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You are required to act at the best, the highest.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
We keep losing you, Jimmy, for each
Oh,
you know, some of the things. But what you're saying is that your university can basically call you to order
no, the
if
university
you
does.
yeah, say that again.
The universities do. The universities do. Universities do call people to account, to order.
Yes. Okay.
Let me give you an example. For instance,
Yeah.
you went out in the field to conduct research. Okay, you got ethical clearance, but when you got to the field, you abuse the what do you call it, confidence of people and so on and so forth. The people in the community file a complaint with your university.
Yes.
The university has an obligation to protect its integrity
Act.
by investigating
Yeah.
and then determining the level of what do you call it, something. But I think the emphasis here should be in recognizing that there are threats to academic freedom. Okay, and that in protecting the academic freedom, it's there's a responsibility that that becomes a duty for scholars themselves to undertake.
For scholars
I,
themselves.
I
Yeah.
can't say I have academic freedom and then I don't go to my classes. I don't go to
Yes.
teach. I
Yeah.
said I
I
have
mean,
academic freedom and I
I mean,
harass myself.
next week, I want us to talk a little more about examples, and we'll invite someone else also, so that we've got two people there. I mean, there's an argument going on about a professor who used the N word in Canada in class, and
Yeah.
students, the student complained. I mean, you know, and the professor argues that he's got freedom, academic freedom, makes an argument on academic freedom. And I think I want us to get to those examples, because there's examples like those, there's examples of bad signs, you know, there's examples of people, you know, using their power to you know, abusing academic freedom to share the messages, the political messages that perhaps they hold about certain groups of people. I mean, I want us to talk about it, but I want us to answer Jimmy's question. Jimmy says, oh, I think that's what you've been answering, I guess. He says, I'm interested in learning about the balance between academic freedom and ethics. How do the academic freedom of academics, how can it enhance the intellectual freedom of students? We're losing you, Jimmy. We're losing you, Jimmy. Oh, this network, Jimmy, is so bad.
Am I back?
Jimmy?
Yeah.
You are back. I'm wondering, shouldn't we let you off and then you come back again? Let's see if it will be better.
I'm afraid I'm
let me let you off, and then we can bring you back. We'll bring you back. I mean, I don't know why it's doing this, but I want you guys to stay put, because this is an interesting conversation. I mean, Jimmy asked about the balance between academic freedom and ethics, and how the academic freedom of academics, how can the academic freedom of academics enhance or limit the intellectual freedom of students? All right, so it's not just, I mean, as Jimmy was saying, it's not just us professors who have academic freedom. Students also do have the freedom. So how do we, in our protecting our academic freedom, how can we enhance or limit the intellectual freedom of students? I want to check Professor Adesina again and see if he can join us. I saw our favorite professor is also online. Professor Sipamanda Zondi is online, is listening. If there are other professors there who want to join in the conversation, they must let me know here. As you can see, we are struggling with a line here. I don't know, people who are asking to join me here, whether you want to, let's see, Professor Adesina. Professor Adesina is not in the room. He's left the room, but we're going to keep trying. All right, and then we have another question from Prudence. Universities are places where everyone is given the space to practice their academic freedom, right? She says. But then how do we exercise the notion of academic excellence if we are still trying to decolonize our universities? Doesn't the undecolonized university context constrain academic freedom? Oh, I can see Professor Adesina is there. Let's see, request from Professor Adesina. There you go. Harun, thank you very much. Palohanes, thank you. Let's see, Professor Adesina is joining us. Jimmy,
Okay,
welcome
all right.
back.
Yeah.
Welcome back. That's much better.
I'm sorry, you know, this is...
it's not you, it's Vodacom. Let's answer Jimmy's question. How can the academic freedom of academics enhance or limit the intellectual freedom of students?
Well, you know, okay, look, first of all, this was something about a debate in which I was involved in several years ago.
Oh.
And in trying to outline the issue of academic freedom as not simply something that happens to academics.
Yeah.
But when you walk into a classroom, okay, good pedagogy is taking your students from where they are, acknowledging the collective memory they bring into your classroom, and working with them to where they need to be. So you come in first year and so on and so forth. The acknowledgement of the collective memory of people becomes quite important. That's one dimension in terms of the content of what do you call it, of what we teach. In other words, that people need to be able to see themselves in the curriculum. That you know, this was in early 2000, before the idea of decolonization came in and so on and so forth. Second part is this, that and it happens with research, research degrees. A student comes in and says, I want to work on this area. And the way I define my responsibility as a supervisor is to help that individual accomplish what he or she wants to do. Not for me to say, if I was doing this research, you know, and so on and so forth, you know, this is where, you know, I don't agree with your epistemological something and this and that, you know. You must use this particular framework, even when that individual does not. That's, for me, it will be the violation of the academic freedom of the students. And this is where the point comes in. In the debate that CHE, Council for Higher Education, you know, initiated in 2005, 2006, for a report on public accountability of universities. My intervention in that debate was that we were getting trapped in the European what do you call it, discourse around the public and the private. In other words, the public is what should be the concern in Lockean, what do you call it, liberal discourse and this and that. The private should not be. But once you start looking at social responsibility, social accountability, you then got to ask yourself what is happening inside the universities themselves. Okay? We do have situations where there are departments where things fall, you know, what do you call it? There's a whole sharp line divide on the basis of which epistemological orientation one group takes and the other one takes. And it's almost like when you come into that department, you must align yourself with this or that. Why? Why can't a student decide that I'm, what? Now, that is not the same thing as the obligation of me as a supervisor to ensure that when my student makes an argument, he or she makes the argument with rigor and evidence. In other words, don't make loose arguments. Don't make arguments that shows that you're not familiar with the literature. Once you get over that, okay, it's about supporting our students to become what they want to become. Okay, you know, rather than imposing. You have situations where, in fact, and you will know this, where people are asked to review the work of another person, and rather than review the work of that person in terms of what the person says he or she wants to do, they start reviewing it on the basis of, I disagree with this person's epistemology.
You must do
that's
this.
Not your business.
Yes.
That's part of the problem, where the threat to academic freedom is not just outside of academia, but often happens within academia itself. And the third part of that, which affects students and so on, is intolerance to alternative opinion.
Yes.
Now, I may not agree with you, but I have to respect your right to hold your opinion, as long as you respect the ethics of the profession and act with the utmost responsibility.
Yeah, you know, Jimmy, I agree wholeheartedly that even if I don't agree with you, I should allow you to state what you think, as long as you are not violating other people's rights or crossing the ethical line. And I guess that the issue is, where is that line? And we know that crossing that line, you see, if it's, there's what is unethical, what is ethical or unethical is something that gets tricky. Okay, so of course we can talk about bad signs. So it's also the issue of using racialized ways of describing the people that you're researching or the group that you're researching, that sometimes people might find offensive. All right. So what is unethical? I mean, so I think that the question is, why is this unethical? Of course, one argument is this is unethical because it's bad science, but sometimes you can say, well, it's unethical because of the language. You can't be using the N-word in this case. But I think that for me, that's the dodgy part. Okay, the phone is. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Well, okay. Now this is where when the rubber hits the road, okay.
Yeah.
You have to treat each case on its own merit. All right, and you have to be conversant with the circumstance. So let's say an incident happens. There's a complaint that is laid. It's the obligation of a university or an institution to set up a panel, that is transparent, with due process and so on and so forth. Now, judgments are often made on the basis of some measure of consensus as to what. So you can't. Let's say, for instance, you're conducting a study. You can't go around using the K word to describe your
sample.
Your sample, and this. Yeah. You can't use the N word to.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not the same thing as me claiming that I'm offended because somebody said this. Now, if the person's research finding, with all the rigor that is required, which is not a question of somebody imposing their prejudice on their research, then you don't get offended, okay? But where somebody is imposing his or her prejudice on the research, that would be unethical. If you go, for instance, let me give you a very simple one that I encountered in a research ethics committee, evaluation of a research. Somebody said, we're doing photograph something and this and that. And the question I ask is, you're gonna take people's picture. Are you gonna ask them for their consent for you to take their pictures? Secondly, for you to use their pictures. I said, no, it's going to be in the market. So I said, okay, so how many people are you going to be able to capture in the picture? It's an ethical thing. It's a small thing. It's a small thing. But you cannot say because I'm pursuing research, I can do anything that I want.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's not even research. This taking pictures of homeless people or people at the market, and then using them in writing somewhere. I mean, it is unethical. Jim, Are you still there, Jimmy? All right, we're gonna cut Jimmy here and ask him to come back. Jimmy, I've cut to Jimmy. Jimmy, try to come back. Okay, I'm gonna ask that you come back, because it seems like when we do that, it gets better. So we're going to ask Professor Adesina to come back, because it gets better when we do that. There it is again. So Professor Adesina is talking about someone who's applying for ethical clearance and says, I'm going to take pictures and then I'm going to use pictures. And I mean, you asked that question, but you also talked about someone imposing their own prejudices in what they find. But you know, there's something about taking pictures of people doing things and then using them, whether for research or not. That's unethical, period.
Yeah, it is.
You know, I have a situation of some professor who took a picture of me on a Saturday in the business lounge whilst I was traveling overseas. And this person finds me sleeping in the business lounge. I can't see them. I don't even know them. They take a picture of me and then they put it on a publication, stating their views about me. Very unethical.
Somebody is not allowed to use your image
exactly
without your consent. You know, it's
absolutely.
So I cannot say that.
You can't.
Where does academic freedom protect you, and where is it that academic freedom does not protect you? If you act unethically.
But here's the thing. But here's the thing, Jimmy. We talk about ethics, do no harm, and so on. So if I collect data from a rural community somewhere in Hammanskraal, and I have data, I have gone through ethical clearance, they've given me consent, I do the analysis, I have the findings. The findings are not so favorable, are not speaking so well about the community. And it is a poor community. Do I have a researcher? Do I have the freedom to publish those findings? And let's say the science is on board, it's above board. There's nothing wrong with the science. The instruments are used, the frameworks, everything. But it doesn't show the community in the good light. I'm a scholar, I'm privileged, and then what are the ethics of me publishing that? They've given me consent. They even agreed that I can say the name of their village. But here it is, it doesn't look good. And then I go out there, I put it out. What are the ethics there? Should I always go back to them and say, here are the findings, do you like them? Can I publish them?
Well, okay. Something I learned in my graduate, what do you call it, something, which is that empathy is the beginning of ethnographic wisdom.
Yes.
I can walk into a community and impose judgments on that community based on my own social location. I can walk into the community, engage with the community, and try to walk in their shoes.
Yes.
Okay. There's no obligation for a researcher, if your research is rigorous, to reflect a community in good light. There's no obligation.
There's no obligation, yeah.
What do you call it? A maintenance crew in a refinery. We were working on the top of the column, almost like 300 meters from the ground.
Yeah.
We were doing the wrench, and I developed blisters.
Yes.
And for me, it was exhilarating because here I was, lower middle class, wanting to be, what do you call it, part of the working class and so on and so forth. And the blisters was my, what do you call it? It's like I developed work, something I said, this experience of work. And I had this rush, this sense of exhilaration, almost like a Pele. That's the way I describe it in my thesis. Pele scoring a goal and punching this, the air and doing bicycle wheeling and so on and so forth. And then
oh, Jimmy, we're losing you again, Jimmy. I'm gonna drop you and then bring you back. Let's do it again, because when you come back, it's always better. When Jimmy comes back, it's always better. And Ntando is asking very interesting questions, and of course, Ntando is asking here, Jimmy. I'm gonna read Jimmy's question, but I do want Jimmy to finish what he's saying. We're gonna go over time because we got disturbed a little bit today. Empathy is the beginning of ethnography's wisdom. Jimmy's joining us. Yeah.
All right. Okay. And then just to conclude that story, and then I looked around me with every other person in my maintenance crew, and there was nobody celebrating developing distance. Now, and I've written about this, and what struck me is a major deficiency in the methodological training that I received. Okay, which is this ethnographic thing about, you get into the community, you see the world, the way they see it, you hear the way the kind of the Malinowski thing, and so on and so forth. He passed through UCT in the 20s. It was UCT in the 20s. The standard ethnographic thing in anthropological research and things like that. And this is where the whole question about empathy is the beginning of ethnographic wisdom. That I am not able to see the world the way they see it because I'm a middle class person coming to do the research.
Yes.
So when I go into a community and I impose my own perspective on that, it's not unethical, but it's inappropriate. It's not the way, So nobody can say, I'm going to get sanctioned because my research did not portray the community in good light. But if I were to go in, and this is there are a lot of studies that have shown this. There are things that if you are looking from outside are irrational. But when you get into the mindset of the people with whom you're conducting research, you understand the logic and this. And the essence of good research is being able to present it, not assume that you understand the world. Their world. Okay. So let's come back to the Hammond-Scratch something. Is the result of the negative presentation a consequence of my middle class spectacles casting gaze on the community? Did I get to understand, the single mother? From the perspective of the single mother. It doesn't mean that I can't make judgments, calls on situations and this and that. These are more intricate things around research. Empathy, is the beginning of ethnographic wisdom. And it's being able to be it's not your business anyway as a researcher to go around making judgments about your research subjects and so on and so forth. And those are important issues, but they are about holding yourself to a higher ethical standard, higher norms of conducting research, higher framework of designing research and thinking through research than just the standard
Jimmy,
rules.
Jimmy, Ntando is asking a question that connects to what you're saying. He's written it on Facebook here, and he says, He says, what is the impact of the fees must fall press for decolonization on the conceptions of both academic freedom and institutional autonomy, if any? And I mean, yeah, is there, if any, I mean, has there been an impact since fees must fall? Has fees must fall imposed any constraints to academic freedom? Like now people are scared to ask certain questions since then, or are people, have people been enabled, or is it both?
Well, you know, there are, I actually draw a distinction between the, you know, inspirational ideas behind Rhodes Must Fall and Fees Must Fall. Okay, Fees Must Fall was about financial inclusion, financial access. Okay, Rhodes Must Fall is about cultural and epistemic access.
Yeah, but he's talking only about fees must fall.
No. Yeah, no, because we tend to combine, we tend to group, you know, somebody will say fallist movement and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
I think in two ways. I gave a seminar at the university in Johannesburg in.
we can hear Prof. Jimmy. We can hear you, Jimmy. I think your Vodacom. We lost you. We lost you.
Yeah.
We lost you, Jimmy.
Okay. All right.
We lost you. So
I'm back.
Yeah. So when you said you gave a seminar at UJ.
No, not UJ, not UJ. I just say university in Johannesburg. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And I was invited to give a talk there because I received this letter saying that students were complaining in class that they were tired of seeing just this, you know, pale, you know, European males. You know, why they're not being taught about what people who look like them wrote.
Yes.
And in 2005, 2006, this was what do you call it? A crusade that a few of us were waging. In that, just a simple thing about the nature of a good pedagogy. If you were teaching in 1980s and your class was made up of 80% white, and you were teaching in a particular way, and you come to 2005 and your class is 80% black, and you still continue to teach in the same way, then there's something wrong. Okay, who are the people who constitute your curriculum? Who are the people that your students read? Okay, and so on and so forth. Now, what the Fees Must Fall, Rhodes Must Fall movements have done.
Jimmy, I'm gonna cut you and bring you back. Let's bring you back, Jimmy. Let's bring you back. It's misbehaving again. It's misbehaving again. We want to bring you back, Jimmy. We want to hear that answer to that question. Remember, we're going to continue again next week, but I want us to hear Jimmy's response to Ntando's question about whether there's an impact or not on academic freedom and institutional autonomy. Since yes,
right.
Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
So what it has done, arguments that some of us used to make in the early 2000s are made by themselves now. The students are on the street demanding that they want to be taught in a way that affirms them. Okay.
Yes.
And in fact, it led to my research on what do you call it, Achima Feje, Bernard Magubane, Ruth First, Fatima Mia.
Yes.
Because these were people I read as an undergraduate outside of this country. And then I came into South Africa and they were.
The network is playing us, Jimmy. We can hear you, Jimmy. We can hear you, Jimmy. All right, the network is playing us, Jimmy. I want us to hear that. I want us to hear that last response. But the network is playing us. Jimmy, I want you to come back because I think you're making a good point. You're talking about the work that you did on Fatima Mehr. And okay, there we go. Let's see. We're waiting for Jimmy to join us. We're going to close just now. Just one Jimmy. Yes. You are talking about the work that you did.
Yeah, you know, and happily out of that, you know,
yeah,
especially at Rhodes University, as emerged a number of PhDs and so on, and South African PhDs who have written, you know, if one of them just published the book on that. And so that's one part. In other words, the obligation, the responsibility for teachers themselves to respect the collective memory that their students bring into the classroom. Okay, you could argue in a way, and it depends on how it plays out. In the process, they have been very nastily said about each other. They have been what do you call? I'm hoping that, you know, things will calm down. It's a happy environment to be in now. When the university says, can you address us about curriculum change? You know, this is our modules. Can you help us think about how, you know, what do you call it? And my argument, although it's not it's not about Africanizing the curriculum.
Yeah.
No, that's too easy. It's about approaching a subject from the standpoint of the people you're teaching.
Okay. Okay. Jimmy, I'm gonna ask us to pause it here. What we're going to do, because it's acting up again, but we are out of time. The network is so poor. We can't hear you, Jimmy. We lost all of that point completely. All right. I'm going to pause our conversation here. Next week, we're having part 2 of academic freedom. Okay. I want to bring Jimmy back.
I'm sorry for this.
And Jimmy, I'm going to take this question. I mean, I think these questions that Ntando is asking, I can see other people ask questions here. I'm going to take them. I'll send them to you. We'll start with them next week. And let's engage on this issue again next week. People might send more questions, but I think it's been really, really insightful. I mean, you know, you've touched on so many issues when it comes to academic freedom, because it's not just about us having academic freedom. It's also about our students, but we're also talking about our teaching. I mean, from whose perspective? Why do we see what we do, what we see as researchers? I want us to pause it here, Jimmy. I hope you can be available next week.
Right.
Would you be available, Jimmy?
Yes, I will be.
All right, Jimmy.
No,
Jimmy is actually frozen.
This is a privilege.
Great.
This is a privilege. It's a privilege, you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. It's been very, very insightful. So we look forward to talking to you again next week. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for joining us. Thank you. Yeah. So we're just going to close the session now. So as I said, we join us next week. If you have a question, just put it send it to at the Past 3 AM squad, and we will take it up next week. I really want Jimmy to take some cases next week, even if it's just one case, just to work us through it. I see people are asking questions about ethics. I think the question about fees must fall is very interesting and probably important to get onto. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much on Twitter. Thank you. We're going to stop broadcast on Twitter. Thank you. There you go. Instagram, thank you so much for joining us today.